She whispered, "You're still my everything," while she sneaked into his bed after work. I felt the words against my skin before I could process them. Her breath was warm on my ear, and she was pressed against me in that way we used to do every night, close, comfortable, safe. My mind tried to focus on the moment, to believe her, but something was off. The words didn't feel real. They felt rehearsed, too soft, too careful. I turned to face her, looking into her eyes. Those eyes that once felt like home. But today, there was a distance behind them, a slight hesitation that I couldn't shake off. For the past few weeks, everything had started to change. She was pulling away, but I wasn't ready to admit it. Not to myself, at least. I ignored the signs, the late nights at work, the quick texts when I asked her what was going on, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. But when she said those words, "You're still my everything," I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But I didn't. Not anymore. We were in bed, still tangled in the sheets, when she pulled away and glanced at her phone on the nightstand. A quick glance, almost too quick, but I caught it. Her thumb swiping across the screen, her lips pressed into a thin line as she read something. I didn't ask. I never did. She'd been distant for weeks, and every time I tried to confront her, the excuses were the same. "I'm just tired," or "work has been crazy." I used to tell myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But now I wasn't so sure. "I need to get up," she said softly, rubbing my arm before pulling away from me completely. I didn't want to let go of her, but she had already pulled back emotionally. What was the point of holding on physically? I stayed still, watching her as she got dressed, as she slipped into the clothes she had worn to work earlier. It didn't feel right. There was a certain finality in the way she moved. She was distant in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't just the physical distance. It was something else. She grabbed her bag from the chair and turned to me, but she didn't meet my eyes. She just gave me a small smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes anymore. "I'll be back later." "Don't wait up," she said as she moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. It was too late to pretend like I wasn't suspicious. She hesitated just for a moment, then shrugged. "About a late meeting with some of the team from work. We're just grabbing dinner afterward. I'll be home soon." I didn't say anything else. I didn't ask what dinner had to do with the meeting or why she hadn't mentioned it before. I didn't question why she hadn't told me the details. Instead, I nodded. I didn't even trust my own voice enough to respond. She turned and left, the door clicking softly behind her. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the words she had whispered still ringing in my ears. "You're still my everything." I had heard those words before, so many times, but today they sounded like a lie. It wasn't the first time I'd felt this way, but it was the first time I couldn't ignore it. Something was wrong. And I was afraid it was something I wasn't going to be able to fix. I waited up that night. I couldn't sleep, couldn't calm my racing thoughts. After an hour, then two, I pulled myself out of bed and wandered into the living room, grabbing my phone off the counter. I stared at the screen, debating whether I should send her a message. But before I could decide, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. "Running a little late. I'll be home in an hour. Miss you." I stared at the words, reading them over and over, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. But the pit in my stomach kept growing, and with it, the sinking feeling that someone was pulling her away from me. By the time she came home, it was close to 2 a.m. The door creaked open, and I heard the soft shuffle of her footsteps. I sat up in bed, my eyes immediately finding hers, but she didn't seem surprised. She didn't even seem guilty. She smiled, but it wasn't the same smile I was used to. It was small, tight. "Hey, you're still awake?" she said softly, her voice gentle, but the warmth in it felt hollow. "Yeah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what I was supposed to say to her anymore. I had so many questions, but I didn't want to ask any of them. Not like this. Not when I was already so sure of what I was going to hear. She set her bag down on the floor, then slipped out of her shoes, the soft click of the heels echoing in the quiet apartment. Her movements were slow, almost mechanical, and as she slipped under the covers beside me, she sighed deeply, her breath warm against my neck. She was so close to me, but it felt like miles. I didn't know how much longer I could ignore it. The truth had been sitting in front of me for so long, and tonight, I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't pretend that her late nights at work, her secretive messages, and the distance between us were just coincidences. I couldn't ignore the way she'd been sneaking around me, hiding things, pulling away when I needed her the most. I couldn't ignore the fact that I was losing her, and I wasn't sure if I even had a chance of getting her back. I turned to her, my eyes searching hers. "I need to know the truth," I said quietly, my voice barely audible in the stillness of the room. "Are you seeing someone else?" The question hung between us for what felt like forever. She didn't answer immediately, and when she did, her voice was soft, almost defeated. "No, it's not like that," she said. Her gaze dropped to the bed, and I saw her fidget with the blanket, pulling at the fabric nervously. "I told you, I just need space. Things have been complicated." I didn't know what to say to that. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in my chest. The same feeling that had been there for weeks, growing stronger each day. "Then why do I feel like you're slipping away from me?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly, despite myself. She didn't answer. Instead, she closed her eyes and turned away from me, pulling the blanket tighter around her. The silence between us felt so thick, suffocating, like we were both drowning in it. She whispered something, almost too quietly for me to hear, "Because I don't know what else to do." And that was it. That was the truth, wasn't it? She didn't know how to fix it. She didn't know how to make things right between us. Maybe she didn't want to, but there it was, hanging in the air like an unspoken promise that neither of us was willing to make anymore. I lay there in the dark, my thoughts racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd whispered those words to me earlier. "You're still my everything." But if I was really still her everything, why was she sneaking into his bed after work? Why was she keeping secrets? And why, when it was so obvious that we were falling apart, was I still trying to hold on? I don't have an answer, but I think I'm finally starting to understand that maybe it's time to let go. Because if she's already decided to slip away, maybe the only thing left to do is to stop fighting for something that isn't coming back. Part 2. The silence in the room stretched on after she said those words. I don't know what else to do. I didn't know how to respond. It was like she was admitting defeat, but I couldn't tell if she was talking about us or about herself. She didn't look at me when she said it. She kept her back turned, her body curled into a tight ball, as if trying to make herself as small as possible. The faint hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the apartment, a reminder of the stillness, of the space between us that seemed to grow larger with every passing second. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet swallow me whole. Her words kept replaying in my head. I don't know what else to do. There was again the helplessness in her voice, the same tone she had used when she told me about needing space a few weeks ago. Space, that's what she said. But what did that really mean? Was she trying to figure out how to love me again? Or was this her way of slowly slipping out of my life, without ever really having to admit it? I wanted to reach out to her. I wanted to pull her back into my arms, to make things feel like they used to. I want to make her smile the way she used to, genuine, with her eyes lighting up the way they always did when she looked at me. But I couldn't. I didn't even know if she wanted me to anymore. I was just lost. She wasn't asleep either. I could tell from the way she was breathing, shallow, uneven, like she was in a battle with herself. I didn't have to ask her if she was thinking about him. Max. I hadn't heard his name in a while, but I didn't need to. I could feel the weight of it between us, like an elephant sitting in the room, heavy and unspoken. Max was the reason she had been too busy for me, the reason she hadn't been there when I needed her. I didn't need to be a detective to figure out that he was the one she was turning to now, even though she had never outright said it. I thought about confronting her again. I thought about throwing it all out there. Are you seeing him? Are you in love with him? But something inside me held me back. Maybe it was the fear that I already knew the answer. Maybe I didn't want to hear it, but it didn't matter. Because in that moment, I realized that it wasn't about Max anymore. It wasn't about what she was doing or who she was seeing. It was about how she had made me feel, How small I had started to feel in her presence. How distant I had become in my own relationship. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. I hadn't even realized I had fallen asleep, but when I opened my eyes, the apartment was bathed in soft morning light, and she was already out of bed. She was in the kitchen, her back to me as she poured herself a cup of coffee. She hadn't made any noise when she got up. She hadn't kissed me goodbye or said anything to indicate she was leaving for work. I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes, still feeling the weight of everything. She was acting like she was going through the motions, like nothing had changed, like nothing was wrong. But I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't look at her and pretend that I didn't feel her pulling away, piece by piece. "Hey," I said softly, breaking the silence. She didn't turn around immediately, but I could hear her sigh, like she had been expecting me to say something. When she did face me, her expression was carefully neutral, but there was a flicker of something behind her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or sadness. "Good morning," she said, but the words didn't sound real. She wasn't really looking at me, her gaze darting around the room, as if she were searching for an escape. "Are we going to talk about last night?" I asked, my voice hoarse from lack of sleep. My throat felt raw, like I'd been holding back everything I wanted to say for days, maybe weeks. She set her coffee cup down, but didn't sit down next to me. Instead, she stood there, twisting the edge of her sleeve nervously. "I'm not sure what you want me to say," she replied, her voice small. I felt my frustration rise, mixing with the exhaustion of not knowing where I stood. "I just want the truth. I can't do this anymore, not like this. I need to know where we're at. Are we even together anymore? Or is this just a facade?" Her eyes flickered, and for a second, I thought she might actually answer me. But she didn't. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, but nothing came out. She took a step back, rubbing her temples. "I don't know, Jace. I don't know what to tell you." Her voice broke, the mask she had been holding up slipping for just a moment. "I'm so sorry, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm doing." I couldn't tell if she was talking to me or herself. I couldn't tell if she was apologizing for not loving me the way I wanted her to, or for the mess she had made of her own life. But all I knew was that I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep being the person who was just waiting around, holding on to a love that was already slipping away. I stood up, taking a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Maybe you should go," I said, my voice low but firm. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. So tired. Her eyes widened slightly. "What? Maybe you should go," I repeated. "Figure out what you really want. But you can't keep doing this to me. I can't keep waiting for you to choose me. I need to know where I stand." She looked at me for a long time, like she was trying to decide if she should stay or leave, if she should keep pretending. But then, finally, her shoulders slumped and she nodded. "I think you're right," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I think I need to go. I need space. I just don't know how to fix this." I watched her walk to the door, grabbing her bag from the chair where she had left it last night. For a moment, I thought she might look back at me, but she didn't. She just stepped into the hallway, leaving the door slightly ajar behind her. And I stood there in the kitchen, my chest tight, fighting the sting of tears that threatened to fall, but I wouldn't let them. Not yet. Not until I could be sure that this was really over. I didn't know where she was going. I didn't know if she was going to Max, or if she was just looking for herself. All I knew was that she was gone. I heard the elevator ding and the faint click of the door shutting as she left the building, and I was left standing in the empty silence of our apartment. I think I finally understood. She wasn't going to choose me, and now I had to choose myself.